history of innovations. Unlike today, nearly a century and a half ago, the idea of replaying life on a screen was unheard of and something of only science fiction. This was until an English photographer named Edward Muybridge had a question of whether or not a horse lifted all 4 feet off the ground when in full gallop. The problem that he faced was that he was not able to take a single shot picture and be able to time it right. To solve this, he set up a system of 12 cameras that took pictures at a set interval. This allowed Muybridge to get a set of pictures that were continuous. To play back all the pictures, though, Muybridge had to invent a crude projector that allowed for only brief image sequences to be played. This simple test of whether or not a horse lifted all 4 legs lit up the minds of inventors all across the globe. At first, they tested new materials to find ones that allowed for multiple pictures to be taken continuously on a single camera. But it wasn't until 1889 when Hannibal Goodwin decided to use celluloid, a thin strip of transparent material that was combined with a coating of chemicals that were sensitive to light. When light passed through the camera lens and onto the film, it left a black and white imprint of what was being shot. This invention sparked the interest of one of the most innovative people in America, Thomas Edison. By using his own invention of the light bulb, along with Goodwin's celluloid film, he was able to invent a single-person viewing system called a kinetoscope. This invention could hold 50 feet of film, allowing for longer displays, and not just a couple seconds of film like Muybridge's setup. The kinetoscope also opened up the door for many entrepreneurs, as kinetoscope parlors began opening up all across the nation. While the kinetoscope was prospering in the Americas, 2 brothers, Louis and Auguste Lumiere from France, developed the cinematograph, which allowed for camera, film, and projection systems to all be combined and viewed by a large audience. Edison realized that if he did not improve on the cinematograph soon, that it would take over his kinetoscope. This led to the vitascope, which allowed for even longer film strips and was a large screen system. Within just a short time span, the vitascope took over the kinetoscope and instantly got excellent reviews from newspapers all across the nation. The New York Times described the vitascope as wonderfully real and singularly exhilarating. It was also noted that many members of the audience actually stepped back from the screen in fear of getting wet from rushing waves. The vitascope hinted at a new mass medium taking shape as narrative films began to go into development. People began to get bored with just watching simple events like a man running or a horse jumping and wanted something more. A film that told a story with characters and different moving camera angles. Narrative films introduced this with suspenseful silent films. One of the first names that broke out in narrative films was George Méliès. He was not the first person to come with the concept of special effects, but one of the first people to successfully pull it off. One such movie was A Trip to the Moon that was shot in 1902. The film used a wide variety of camera techniques and tricks that ranged from slow motion to cartoon animation. Méliès's innovation and techniques for special effects sparked the interest of many other aspiring cameramen. One such man was Edwin Porter, who studied Méliès while at work in Thomas Edison's labs. He learned to master editing film to tell and display a story, and also figure out a new way of shooting film. Up to this point, people had been shooting film in order even if a scene was revisited. Porter saw this as a waste of time, and shot scenes out of order and then cut and paste them into the order he desired. Another technique he introduced was a close-up shot. Films used to have a camera sit back and shoot the entire scene without individual items or actors being the entire focus of the shot. Others believed that close-up shots robbed the audience of opportunities to see the entire scene. Porter proved this common belief wrong in his narrative film titled The Life of an American Fireman. Even though the close-up was only a couple seconds long of a ringing fire alarm, it revolutionized the way that filming was done. With so many innovations taking place in film, in just a few decades, film became even more popular and profitable. Edison realized that you could have a share of all the profits of all movies being made by pulling together all the patents for multiple pieces of technology that made film possible. With this innovative idea, he formed a company known as The Trust in 1908. This power grab made many independent producers very angry, and they refused to pay such fees, and a migration of movie makers began. Up until 1908, almost all movies were based on the East Coast, especially in New York. To escape the trust and the fees for making movies, many producers fled to California and would make films there. If Edison's trust went looking for the fees, then the producers would flee over to Mexico and wait for Edison to forget about the fees. Within just a decade, Hollywood had become the center of movies, and a lawsuit was filed by William Fox against Edison's trust for trade violations in 1917. The suit ended Edison's tyrannical grip on the film industry, but William Fox did not sue Edison for a greater good, and soon after teamed up with Adolf Zukar to build their own control of the movie industry with the system called vertical integration. The idea was that if you control the three stages that film go through, of production, distribution, and exhibition, that you control everything. This allowed for Zucker's company, Paramount Pictures, and William Fox's company, Fox Film Corporation, to grow, while causing the cost for independent film companies to rise. Not only were there production costs, but film companies also had to find movie theaters to show them at. The problem was that people like Zucker realized this and began to buy up movie theaters all across the nation and would only show movies from his company. By the 1920s, Zucker had an innovative idea that led to movie palaces. These large, one-screen buildings were elegant and very fancy, drawing in the upper and middle classes to movies. Also, the palaces were one of the first buildings to have air conditioning. Someone could pay a couple of cents to go away from the sweltering heat outside and watch a movie. Furthermore, in the 1920s, inventors broke into the movie industry once again with the invention of sound of motion pictures. Edison had previously attempted to link up a phonograph to a movie, but the audio was never aligned with the film correctly. In the 1920s, this problem was solved by Bell Lab, allowing for the introduction of movies known as talkies. The first popular talkie was The Jazz Singer in 1928, which made $5 million, ensuring that talkies were a success and that this movie type was here to stay. The Jazz Singer was not the only success in the movie industry. With the invention of sound, movie attendance rose 50% in just 2 years from 1927 to 1929. Movies continued to grow slowly, with better technology for crisper images and better sound, but it wasn't until 1977 when movies took another drastic change. 20th Century Fox, previously known as Fox Film Corporation, released Star Wars that was produced, written, and directed by George Lucas. This big-budget movie showed innovations from the way that it was produced to how it was marketed that it became a standard in today's movies. Star Wars was produced on a large budget that allowed for many special effects like lightsabers and realistic-looking galactical battle scenes that gave the audience something to feel connected to. Star Wars also changed the way that movies were marketed. Instead of marketing to older audiences, they aimed at 12 to 24-year-olds, who now make up 38% of all moviegoers. Along with marketing came merchandising, with no other movie doing nearly as well as Star Wars, with merchandising still taking place 30 years after its original release date. To this date, Star Wars' innovative merchandising strategy has allowed for $12 billion in revenue through such things as Legos, toys, and kids' meals. Before Star Wars, it was rare for a movie studio to risk over $50 million on a movie, but now the average is $106.6 million, even though only 15% of all movies actually come out positive. Star Wars changed the movie marketing strategy. Instead of making a small profit on a bunch of movies, the goal now is to have one really successful movie that covers up for all other poorly made movies. It has only been a century and a half since the beginning of film, but has been full of innovation. Many influences have revolutionized the movie industry to where we are now, but film is still growing. It is impossible to predict just how much innovation will continue to take place in film, but one thing is certain, that film is full of an innovative history.